Hey guys, the microculture that I'm going to be talking about is about fencing. So what is fencing? So a lot of people, when they think about fencing, they think of it as, not very popular compared to most sports, nerdy, or they think about it like from movies like Pirates of the Caribbean where they're fighting or dueling or medieval ages. So it does have roots from swordsmanship and dueling, and eventually it did become into a modern sport, which was brought into the Olympics. But basically, what it is, it's a sport between two competitors with two goals. One is to strike their opponent with a bladed weapon, which is the offense, and then the defense is avoid being hit. And there's many rules attached to that, which I'll explain later. So why is it a microculture? So fencing alone, it's a whole different world. And it has its own history, values, its own language, equipment, and rules. So just to fill you in on the history, one of the earliest records of fencing was found from a painting in an ancient Egyptian temple, which is this painting right here. They have kind of like similar fencing weapons over here, and then the style that Egyptians used was considered stick fighting, and one of the only differences between their type of fencing was that they used shields. And then also it was used for religious ceremonies and or training for soldiers. Spanish army spread the art of fencing. They're one of the people that spread it, and they brought it into Italy, where eventually it was taught into universities. And this attracted a lot of students all throughout Europe, and through this history, it actually formed the three different weapons, the three swords. We call it weapons more properly, which is foil, saber, and epee. So some of the rules of fencing, so you could understand better, is one very important one is, especially in a competition, it's a fencer must salute one another, their opponent, and the director, a referee. So literally when you are in the strip, which is the area that you fence in, you have to have your mask off, and you have to salute your opponent and your director. And if you don't do so, this may lose you a point. Each fencer must attempt to touch the other with the tip of their weapon to score a touch or a point. Points are scored by hitting your opponent in the proper target zones. Each weapon has different target zones, which I'll explain and show later. And then also barging the opponent using your hand to cover a target zone or any foot faults or any violent behavior against your opponent or the director may also cause you a point. So over here we have a little bit more explanation of the weapons and target zones, which is part of your equipment. The first one over here, we have foil. So each weapon has a different bell guard, which is basically what helps protect your hand, and each weapon has a specific way of holding it. It protects your arm. So the first one is foil, and over here is foil's target area in the blue. It's from the torso to the neck, not including the legs or the arms. And then we also have the second weapon with a much bigger bell guard, and it's also a much heavier weapon. So here's the target area, which is actually the whole body. And then lastly, we have saber, which its target area is from the torso, including the arms and the head. And then here's some more of the equipment that we use. We have our whites, which is we have our jacket that protects the torso and arms. We have the mask that protects our face and head. We have our glove that protects our hand, and then underneath the jacket we have a plastron as an extra cushion and extra safety. And for girls we have a chest protector, and for guys obviously we have protection down there. One of the best things about chest protectors is that in practices we'd always like put them on, or whenever we want to bout we would go like, the girls would go chest pump each other with the plastrons. It was hilarious. People thought we were weird. But anyways, we also have the knickers, which are the pants, which goes up to the knees. We have to have knee length socks, and then we have special fencing shoes, which is very important, or else you slip very easily. And then also for equipment, we have our electrical equipment, which is important when we do competitions, because our strip is electrical, and the points are determined by the electrical machine. So we have our own different electrical mask, which is different from a practice mask. We have our electronic weapon, or we have body cords that connect to our weapon and to our mask, and then we have an electric metallic jacket that goes over a regular jacket. Basically, it's a lot of equipment, and you basically die in there from heat, especially when the room is hot. It is terrible, you sweat a lot, and it's unattractive. Alright, so next, it's our behavior and communication. There's a lot of terminology in fencing. So you have to have an understanding on how to use your weapon. You have to have the knowledge of the equipment, because there's a lot of equipment. You have to have the understanding of the rules. Each weapon, like I said, has its own rules, so you have to know all the rules, appropriate to your weapon, and understanding the language in the microculture. So some of the terminology I already used in the previous slides about the equipment, but just to fill you in, here are some more. I mentioned bout earlier. A bout is basically when you go against you and your opponent. On guard is basically your ready stance, and our ready stance is literally you're like in this weird, very unattractive position, and you have to hold your weapon in a certain way. Some people have their hand up like this, or out of the way like this, and you have to stand and be ready to attack your opponent. So that's on guard. And then I said strip. Strip is where the fencers fight on. And then we have a parry. So just to give you an understanding, a parry is a block. So when an opponent attacks you, you block it. This is a head block. And then a riposte is basically, once you block it, it's basically a counterattack. So you block it and then you immediately attack back. And then also advance is when you move forward, and then retreat is when you move backward. And then right away, one of the ways you earn right away, or you have right away, is basically you have your line, your on guard line on the strip, and especially in Saber, how you earn right away is basically once the director says fence, whoever gets off the line, the on guard line first, like you go, that's when you gain right away. So this is just an example to show you what a strip looks like between the fencers over here. So these are the strips. They're metallic and electrical. This is the machine right over here where they keep track of the score and the time. So some of the values of fencing. So fencing alone is very important, especially in the Olympics and in universities. It's very competitive. One of the important values of fencing is respect. Respect is literally everything, and along with that is respect and traditions. So like I said, there's a lot of rules that come with fencing. A lot of the rules were formed from history, so we have to follow them and respect them. And then fencing is like a family, and you really do want to respect your teammates, your directors, your coaches who help you along the way, and your opponents. Because, like I said before, if you disrespect your opponents or your directors, that may cause you points. You have to have ability. There's a lot of skills that go into fencing. You have to have adaptability, precision, mental discipline, timing and strategy, and then you also have to have knowledge. There's a lot that goes into fencing. You have to have the knowledge of all these things, like the weapons, the targets, equipment, and all your different attacks and your defenses. And then safety. Safety is very important. You're dealing with weapons, things that could hurt people. I've gotten bruises all over me and scrapes. People think that somebody's abusing me, but no, it's actually from the sport itself. It can be very dangerous. So you have to have safety in handling the weapon. One of the rules is basically no weapon can go up if you don't have your mask on. And then you also have to have the proper attire, of course. Some characteristics. So anyone can be a fencer if you put your mind to it. Just like any sport, fitness does fall into this category. You're constantly in this position, which puts a lot of strain in your legs. And for saber, which is one of the quicker moving weapons, you have to be moving like this. It looks goofy, but you have to be moving like this in proper footing, really fast or for a long time, like epee. And you have to be moving and lunging and attacking. So there is a lot of movement to it. You have to have endurance, flexibility, and keep up with the distance. And there's a lot of mentality into this. So, you're against an opponent. They are not predictable. You have to be observable. You have to see how they play, and you have to adapt to that. And then you have to have a strategy. You have to be focused in the game, and you have to be concentrated, and times do get intense. So you have to have a very level head with it. You have to not get stressed out and, just go with the game. Getting that point is important, but sometimes you lose it and you can't, go completely like psycho over it, which has happened. It's not pretty. And then, some fun facts about fencing. Some famous people that were fencers is President Theodore Roosevelt, Angelina Jolie, the Facebook creator, and then William Shakespeare. Many of ballet positions were derived from fencing, and then the fencing suits is actually really interesting. So before, there were machines that tracked your points or, saw where you hit the target. The fencing suits are actually white because touches back then were recorded with a piece of cotton, which they put at the tip of the weapon, which was dripped in ink. There is a thing called wheelchair fencing. It's part of the Paralympic Games. Fencing is one of the only 5 sports to be included in every modern Olympic Games since the first in 1896. And fencing was also a sport in the original Olympic Games in ancient Greece. So here are just some pictures that I've posted showing some of these fun facts. Here's some ballet fencers. It can be pretty artistic. This is wheelchair fencing. This is chivalry, back then fencing. And this is ancient Greece fencing back then. You see it's a little different because they have shields as well. And conclusion. So just like any other microculture, fencing has its own language, characteristics, and values that make it unique. And here are just some pictures of when I used to do fencing in high school with my team members and my coach. This is when we got 3rd place in districts or state. So Thank you for watching my video. And that is my microculture.